Good Monday morning, everyone, and welcome into today's daily Bible reading for Monday, April the 18th. Today, we are going to be in Jeremiah chapter 42 and also Matthew chapter 23. Jeremiah 42 and Matthew 23 are on the docket for today. Thanks so much for tuning in. Hope that you had a great weekend. You're able to celebrate Easter holiday with your family, and I hope you were able to be encouraged by gathering with saints yesterday. It was a great day in Loudon. And we're looking forward to another good week now of some daily Bible reading as we continue working our way through the prophet Jeremiah and the Gospel of Matthew. I'm going to begin today, as always, in Jeremiah's text, Jeremiah 42. If you recall from our previous chapters here in Jeremiah, beginning back in chapter, let's go ahead and scroll back up here. Back in chapter 39, we see the fall of Babylon, and following that, we see Jeremiah having the opportunity to stay within the land of Israel, and the land is put under the care of Gedaliah. He is the Babylonian appointed leader of the Jewish people. Well, there are some who don't like that, particularly this man named Ishmael. He's in league not only with the Ammonites, but I think he might have some ulterior motives himself as well. And he ends up killing Gedaliah and a number of other individuals, both Jews and Chaldeans, which leads to trouble once Gedaliah comes, once Johanan comes, and Johanan retakes those captives from Ishmael. But instead of turning to the Lord and seeking his help immediately, we see here in Jeremiah chapter 41 and verse number, 17, that this is Johanan and a number of the people that he rescued from the hands of Ishmael. Remember, they were heading off to Ammon. Well, he takes them back, and it says that they stopped in Geruth Kichem, which is near Bethlehem, in order to make their way into Egypt away from the Chaldeans, for they feared them, because Ishmael, son of Nethaniah, had struck down Gedaliah, son of Ahikam, whom the king of Babylon had appointed over the land. So Johanan here feels as if he needs to get away, because the appointed person that the Babylonians had put in charge, Gedaliah, he's dead. And Ishmael, a Jew, had killed not only him, but also actual Chaldeans. That's not good. And now Johanan's thinking that we're going to be just destroyed by the Babylonians because we've rebelled. There's been this issue, so we're just going to go ahead and take off down to Egypt. But they do take a few minutes, it seems. They do pause before they actually do take off to Egypt. We read in chapter 42 that they're going to address Jeremiah and seek the Lord's counsel, seek in quotation marks, because we're going to see here that it isn't exactly the most sincere request that they make in Jeremiah chapter 42, that the Lord is able to recognize that, and he calls them on it. So reading here in Jeremiah 42 and verse number 1, that all the commanders of the armies, along with Johanan, son of Kareah, Jezaniah, son of Hoshaiah, and all the people from the least to the greatest approached the prophet Jeremiah and said, May our petition come before you. Pray to the Lord your God on our behalf, on behalf of this entire remnant. For a few of us remain out of the many, as you can see with your own eyes, that the Lord your God may tell us the way we should go and the thing we should do. So the prophet Jeremiah said to them, I have heard. I will pray to the Lord your God according to your words. I will tell you every word the Lord answers you, and I won't withhold a word from you. And they said to Jeremiah, may the Lord be a true and faithful witness against us if we don't act according to every word the Lord your God sends you to tell us. Whether it is pleasant or unpleasant, we will obey the Lord our God to whom we are sending you, so that it may go well with us. We will certainly obey the Lord our God. At the end of 10 days, so the Lord waits 10 days, he sends this request. The people come to Jeremiah. Jeremiah requests the Lord his counsel, and the Lord waits for 10 days. So at the end of the 10 days, the word of the Lord came to Jeremiah, and he summoned Johanan, son of Kareah, all the commanders of the armies who were with him, and all the people from the least to the greatest. He said to them, this is what the Lord says, the God of Israel, to whom you sent me to bring your petition before him. If you will indeed stay in this land, then I will rebuild and not demolish you, and I will plant you and not uproot you, because I relent concerning the disaster that I have brought on you. Don't be afraid of the king of Babylon, whom you now fear. Don't be afraid of him. This is the Lord's declaration, because I am with you to save you and rescue you from him. I will grant you compassion, and he will have compassion on you and allow you to return to your own soil. But if you say, we will not stay in this land in order to obey the Lord your God, and if you say, no, instead we'll go to the land of Egypt, where we will not see war or hear the sound of the ram's horn or hunger for food, and will live there, then hear the word of the Lord, remnant of Judah. This is what the Lord of armies, the God of Israel, says. If you are firmly resolved to go to Egypt and stay there for a while, then the sword you fear will overtake you there in the land of Egypt, and the famine you are worried about will follow on your heels there to Egypt, and you will die there. All who resolve to go to Egypt to stay there for a while will die by the sword, famine, and plague. They will have no survivor or fugitive from the disaster I will bring on them. For this is what the Lord of armies, the God of Israel, says. Just as my anger and fury were poured out on Jerusalem's residents, so will my fury pour out on you if you go to Egypt. You will become an example for cursing, scorn, execration, and disgrace, and you will never see this place again. The Lord has spoken concerning you, remnant of Judah. Don't go to Egypt, for know for certain that I have warned you today. You have gone astray at the cost of your lives, because you are the ones who sent me to the Lord your God, saying, praise to the Lord our God on our behalf. And as for all that the Lord our God says, tell it to us, and we'll act accordingly. For I have told you today, but you have not obeyed the Lord your God in everything he has sent me to tell you. Now, therefore, know for certain that by the sword, famine, and plague, you will die in the place where you desire to go to stay for a while. Jeremiah chapter 42. Here within this text, we see the request of the people for the Lord to tell them what they should do and where they should go. Because again, they're caught between a pretty good rock and a hard place. They can either leave the land and go to Egypt, where they think they'll be safe, or they can stay in the land of Canaan, where they think that the Chaldeans, the Babylonians, are going to seek retribution because of what has happened. Well, what do we do? Do we leave or do we stay? And then we have verses 5 and 6, which I believe once we get to the end of chapter 42, we recognize it as pretense. It's not a real request. They're not being honest here. They're just saying this for show. May the Lord be true and a faithful witness against us if we don't act according to every word that the Lord your God sends you to tell us, whether it's pleasant or unpleasant. We will obey the Lord our God, to whom we are sending you, so they may go well with us. We will certainly obey the Lord our God. And yet, once we get down here to the end of the text, let's see here. We see in verse number 20, you have gone astray at the cost of your lives, because you are the ones who sent me to the Lord your God. Here it is: pray to the Lord our God on our behalf, and as for all the Lord says, tell it to us, and we'll act accordingly. For I have told you today, but you have not obeyed the Lord in everything he has sent me to tell you. Now, therefore, know for certain that the sword, famine, and plague, you will die in this place, that by the sword, famine, and plague, you will die in this place where you desire to go to stay for a while. So your mind's already made. That seems to be the understanding that I'm getting, that your minds are already made up. You already know what you want to do. You've already made up your mind about what you are going to do. But I'm telling you that when you do this, it's not going to go well for you. And that doesn't mean, though, that the Lord didn't give them a chance. I mean, he gives them great promises in verses 7 through 12. Back up here in 7 through 12, he gives them great promises that if you stay, if, that big little word here, if indeed you'll stay in the land, then I will rebuild you, I will plant you, I am with you to save you and rescue you, I will grant you compassion. So here's the promise: just stay. You said, whatever the Lord says, we'll do. So here's what I'm telling you to do: stay here, and I will take care of you. But here's the warning: if you say, we will not stay in this land in order to disobey the Lord your God, and if you say no and said we'll go to the land of Egypt, which that's been a problem for Israel for a long time, hasn't it? Going all the way back to Abraham, the desire to escape to Egypt. Well, after they had been in Egypt, following the Exodus. They want to go back to Egypt. They want to go back there where they think that every need they have is going to be taken care of. And there's this constant temptation of God's people to turn to Egypt because they were a strong nation, great resources, and a strong army. Why not? Why not turn to Egypt? So let's go to Egypt. Whenever we need help, let's turn to Egypt. It says don't do it. But if you do it, simple statement, there's disaster I will bring on them. And then in verses 19 through 22, God just exposes the hearts of these people, saying this is what they're going to do. And we see in this subheading of the next chapter, what we're going to read tomorrow, that God nailed it. He was absolutely right about what he said here in this text, that they're going to reject your hearts. You say this with pretense. You act like you really want to hear what I'm going to say, but your minds are already made up. So that's our lesson for today. As I think about this, we need to be sincere. And whenever we make a request of God, but not just God, anybody really, we don't need to be insincere people who say that this is what we want. We'd really like to hear your judgment on the matter, but then we just ignore it. No, we've already had our minds made up. And isn't that the most frustrating thing? One of the most frustrating things you think of, that somebody comes to you and asks for your advice, and at the end of it, they'll say, well, thanks for sharing me. I'm going to do this anyways. Well, that's ridiculous. That's so frustrating. How much more so for God, that we might seek his counsel. We might go, okay, well, I need to know what to do in this situation. And we read something that might help us in that situation, but then we say, you know what, my mind's already made up anyways. I was already going to do this, so I'm just going to go do whatever I want to do. How frustrating that is. Extremely frustrating. That's insincerity. That's pretense. That is showing a hard heart. And how many times in Jeremiah has that been something we've had to address? The hard heart, the rebellious heart, the heart that's already made up and rejects what God says. That's the issue here in Jeremiah 42. And we're going to see that expounded upon here in chapter 43 as we read that tomorrow. So I hope you'll join in for that tomorrow in Jeremiah 43. Well, hopping over to our text in the New Testament, which is Matthew chapter 23, we're going to see as well people who don't have good hearts. And this is just a scathing account of rebukes from Jesus toward the Jewish established leadership of his day, the Pharisees, the scribes, and really all of the Jewish leadership could be lumped into these particular rebukes here, because they're all the same. They all act the same way. They have hard hearts. They're disingenuous. It just easy for me to say disingenuous. There we go. They are prideful. They're arrogant. They are do as I say, not as I do type of people. And we're going to see that here in Matthew chapter 23, beginning in verse number 1, Matthew 23, verse number 1. Then Jesus spoke to the crowds and to his disciples. This is from the Christian Standard Bible. The scribes and the Pharisees are seated in the chair of Moses. And therefore, do whatever they tell you and observe it, but don't do what they do, because they don't practice what they teach. They tie up heavy loads that are hard to carry and put them on people's shoulders, but they themselves aren't willing to lift a finger to move them. They do everything to be seen by others. They enlarge their phylacteries and lengthen their tassels. They love the place of honor at banquets, the front seats in the synagogues, greetings in the marketplaces, and to be called rabbi by people. But you are not to be called rabbi, because you have one teacher, and you are all brothers and sisters. Do not call anyone on earth your father, because you have one Father who is in heaven. You are not to be called instructors either, because you have one instructor, the Messiah. The greatest among you will be your servants, and whoever exalts himself will be humbled, and whoever humbles himself will be exalted. Woe to you, scribes, Pharisees, hypocrites! You shut the door of the kingdom of heaven in people's faces, for you don't go in, and you don't allow those entering to go in. Woe to you, scribes, Pharisees, hypocrites! You travel over land and sea to make one convert, and when he becomes one, you make him twice as much a child of hell as you are. Woe to you, blind guides, who say, whoever takes an oath by the temple, it means nothing, but whoever takes an oath by the gold of the temple is bound by his oath. Blind fools, for which is greater, the gold or the temple that sanctified the gold? Also, whoever takes an oath by the altar, it means nothing, but whoever takes an oath by the gift that is on it is bound by his oath. Blind people, for which is greater, the gift or the altar that sanctifies the gift. Therefore, the one who takes an oath by the altar takes an oath by it and by everything on it. And the one who takes an oath by the temple takes an oath by it and by the one who dwells in it. And the one who takes an oath by heaven takes an oath by God's throne and by him who sits on it. Woe to you, scribes, Pharisees, hypocrites! You pay a tenth of mint, dill, and cumin, and yet you have neglected the more important matters of the law: justice, mercy, and faithfulness. These things should have been done without neglecting the others. Blind guides, you strain out a gnat, but gulp down a camel. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! You clean the outside of the cup and dish, but inside they are full of greed and self-indulgence. Blind Pharisee, first clean the inside of the cup, so that the outside of it may also become clean. Woe to you, scribes, Pharisees, hypocrites! You are like whitewashed tombs, which appear beautiful on the outside, but inside are full of the bones of the dead and every kind of impurity. In the same way, on the outside you seem righteous to people, but inside you are full of hypocrisy and lawlessness. Woe to you, scribes, Pharisees, hypocrites! You build the tombs of the prophets and decorate the graves of the righteous. And you say, if we had lived in the days of our ancestors, we wouldn't have taken part with them in the shedding of prophets' blood. So you testify against yourselves that you are descendants of those who murdered the prophets. Fill up then the measure of your ancestors' sins. Verse 33, snakes, brood of vipers, how can you escape being condemned to hell? This is why I'm sending you prophets, sages, and scribes. Some of them you will kill and crucify, and some of them you will flog in your synagogues and pursue from town to town. So all the righteous blood shed on the earth will be charged to you, from the blood of righteous Abel to the blood of Zechariah, son of Berechiah, whom he murdered between the sanctuary and the altar. Truly, I tell you, all these things will come on this generation. Jerusalem, Jerusalem, who kills the prophets and stones those who are sent to her. How often I wanted to gather your children together as a hen gathers her chicks under her wings, but you were not willing. See, your house is left to you desolate, for I tell you, you will not see me again until you say, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Matthew chapter 23. Now, Jesus in this text clearly identifies the scribes and the Pharisees as being the perpetrators within this text, and he just calls them out for what they are. They're prideful, arrogant hypocrites. They say that you need to do this. They're not willing to do it themselves. They show their pride in the fact that they want to be called teacher. They want to have places of seats of importance. They want to be recognized wherever they might go. But all the while, they are actually leading people to be drawn further away from the Lord, which is the sad paradox of who the scribes and Pharisees were. They were the ones who knew the law more than anyone else, and they should have been the ones who were able to draw people closer to God through the law, but instead they used the law as something that pushed people further away from God. And the best description of them is here within, let's see here within verse 25. Actually, it's not, here we go, verse 27, excuse me. You are whitewashed tombs. You are like whitewashed tombs, which appear beautiful on the outside, but inside are full of the bones of the dead and every kind of impurity. In the same way, on the outside, you seem righteous to people, but inside you are full of hypocrisy and lawlessness. They had, again, this pretense. It's the exact same thing. And it's crazy that we are able to find these overlapping connections in the text of Jeremiah, but there they went to the Lord with pretense, not truly being willing to listen to whatever he says. And here we see that as well. We see pretense. We see them acting like they are one thing or going to do one thing, but they end up doing something completely different. They reject God. So for today, I think the main thought we need to take away for today is this: don't be a hypocrite. Don't live with a pretense of godliness when the reality is you don't care about what God says. Only those who truly have hearts wanting to hear the word of the Lord and are willing to accept the word of the Lord and willing to be changed by the word of the Lord, those are the ones who are going to be blessed by God. Those are the ones who are going to be able to enjoy fellowship with him and the blessings that come with being in that fellowship with him. So today, let's check our hearts. Let's check our hypocrisy, make sure that's not something that is true about us. Let's make sure that we are not simply worshiping God out of a sense of pretense, but we're doing it because and we want to be the type of people that he would have us to be. So let's think about that today as we go throughout the rest of this Monday. And I look forward to reading with you again tomorrow in Jeremiah 43 and Matthew chapter 24 as we continue making our way through these texts of Jeremiah and Matthew. Thanks so much for tuning in. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Looking forward to this week of reading with you. Take care.